Well, I think you'd agree I've dished up last night and tonight a heavy dose of politics, but let's be honest, the political scene is anything other than encouraging, and some tough, honest talk is needed. You'll get that here. But I just thought we'd briefly change direction, because Australians love their cricket. People used to say that the captaincy of the Australian cricket team was more important than the Prime Ministership. No, I wouldn't go that far. But in the first test against India in India, it was for Australia a debacle. Now, I've been in the international sporting arena. I don't get too pessimistic about one aberration. Nonetheless, the most telling aspect of the first cricket test was that India batted for parts of all 3 days, and the match finished in 3 days. On the last day, Australia lost 10 wickets in a single session. That's 2 hours. Bowled out for 91. The lowest score for an Australian team on Indian soil. India won by an innings and 132 runs. An innings means that India only batted once. We lost 20 wickets. Nonetheless, cricketing history tells us that Australia has a big hill to climb. India have lost only 2 of 43 tests in the last 10 years at home. They are virtually unbeatable on their turf, which I might add is perfectly manicured for their spinners. Well, in cricket, as in life, things can be turned around. When India were last in Australia, and I know conditions are different here, it was December 2020, Australia won the first test by 8 wickets, when India were bundled out in their second innings for 36 runs. The scoreboard is an archival piece. 4, 9, 2, 0, 4, 0, 8, 4, 0 and 4. Josh Hazlewood took 5 for 8 off 5 overs. So what is to happen in the second test on Friday of this week in Delhi? I thought I'd speak for many reasons to Shane Watson, one of the finest Australian all-rounders to represent Australia on 298 occasions. In fact, Shane was ranked the world's #1 all-rounder in 2020 internationals for 150 weeks, including an all-time record of 120 consecutive weeks from October 13, 2011 to January 30, 2014. Now, this is the rub. Shane Watson has written and self-published an outstanding book which should be in every school and every boardroom, because he went to hell and back at a critical stage of his cricketing career, what he would call the darkest hole of his life, but he turned everything around mentally, which gave him a new dimension on how to use his extraordinary talent. Now, this is true of so many people. Shane writes, and he's one of the most modest people I've ever met. In fact, his young son, Will, is often prompted to remind his dad how many times he got out and how he got out and why he shouldn't have got out. But Shane writes that he sabotaged himself because he lacked the understanding and the tools to properly realise his remarkable ability. Now, the contents of this book are extraordinary. It is called Winning the Inner Battle, where he deals with skill set versus mindset, confidence, focus and overcoming fear, how mindset affects performance, communication and the power of it, the demon of expectation. He knows all about that. He says the brain is like a muscle. I've always said it's the most important muscle in our body. New age distractions, there's a chapter on that. Social media. These are all chapters magnificently and very simply written. Anxiety affects performance. A chapter on that. So it does. Getting rid of your old habits. The value of self-critique. Magnificent book for everybody, not just for cricket, but he's written it drawing on his cricket experiences. He joins me. Shane, thank you for your time tonight. Congratulations. For our viewers, I'm putting up on the screen some of the comments on the screen by Ricky Ponting, who said, in part, this book will teach you everything you need to know to unlock your full mental potential. Not about cricket, whatever your potential is. Brett Lee. This book gives a simple process to be used in all aspects of life. And the great South African Faf du Plessis says, this mental skills program is so relevant and very specific with what actually goes on in your mind before you face every ball. Shane, what brought you to write the book?
Well, through my experiences and my education by a mental skills guru from the US that I was fortunate enough to be able to our paths crossed and I got introduced to him. And from the time that I worked with Dr. Jacques Dallaire, he finally gave me an understanding at 34 of exactly, in really simple terms, how your mind works, how to get out of your own way. And at that time, I was certainly getting in my own way in a big way, to a point where I was on the brink of retirement, just because I knew I wasn't performing anywhere near how I knew I could. So that education has led me to being in a fortunate place where I was then able to put these mental skills into practice through the last 4 years of me playing T20 leagues around the world. And I just know this information, it's so simple to understand, and I wish I knew this information as I was coming through as a teenager.
Yes.
It would have helped me out in so many different ways around reaching my potential, but also taking the worry and stress and anxiety out of what it takes to be as successful as you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've just said, I mean, this is not really about cricket alone, is it? I mean, when you're talking about confidence and focus and overcoming fear, just on that, is that something the current Australian team on Friday must be able to do in the face of this crushing defeat, overcoming fear?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest challenge of playing in India is not knowing exactly how the ball's going to react out of that wicket every single time, compared to what it is in playing in different parts around the world. And the one thing that you need to eliminate when all the players are at their absolute best is when they've got no fear at all. They're just going out in the middle, just taking the game on, bringing the best version of themselves, which everyone, as we saw with Dave Warner in the Boxing Day Test, you could see from ball one, he was at his absolute best. He was taking the game on with no fear whatsoever. And we see that version of Dave Warner in this second test, and if he brings that, then he's got the best chance of being able to really dominate the test match like he has at certain times throughout his career.
I agree entirely. I mean, I used to say to people, forget about what the opposition are. We know what we're going to do, and attack is the best method of defence. Your point, or one of the many points, it's an outstanding book, your point is that while there are always in life many ifs and buts in cricket and in life, it's the mental strength, you say, that people need. And that's, for example, that Pat Cummins' team will now need mental strength.
Yeah, you just need to get out of your own way and understand how to get out of your own way to create the right mental environment for you, so you can access all the skills that you've worked so hard to develop. And yes, it's that's in the cricket field, but that's in all aspects of your life.
Definitely.
All the aspects that everyone's always performing. You want to bring the best version of you to every single moment of your life. And by understanding what that right mindset is for you, it's critically important. But unfortunately, we're not really taught this. We're not taught this at school. It should be one of the essential subjects that we learn at school, is just understanding how to get out our own way to be able to perform at our best at exams or anything that we do in life. But I've just been very fortunate that I came across it at the latter part of my career, and now, you know, what my mission is to be able to pass this information on to as many people as possible.
Magnificent. You've written this chapter, How Mindset Affects Performance. Now, that's true of everything in life, isn't it? I mean, people suffered, for example, not from the coronavirus so much, but from handling the way government addressed it. I mean, your business is shut down. You're a school kid and you can't go to school to be with your mates and enjoy face-to-face learning. And you're saying, well, this is where the mindset kicks in. So just on mindset, and coming back to cricket, what would Travis Head's mindset be, having been left out of the team on the basis that his previous performances on the subcontinent were not up to scratch?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think Travis Head's mindset would be hard to not shift to the fear of failure, because what happens if I play in this next test match, if I don't score runs, then there's a good chance that I'm going to be dropped again, because that decision to not pick Travis Head in the first test just came out of the blue. For one of our dominant players in the last 2 summers, have got Australia a lot of, his performances got us out of a lot of trouble, the Ashes in particular, and during the Australian summer that's just been. Yeah,
I mean, coming back to that earlier point, he strikes me as the kind of aggressive attacking player that would take the fight to India. I once had because 2 of my 5/8s in the Australian rugby side were injured, I picked a young bloke out of nowhere. I won't name who he was. And at our first training session, he was frowning and he was dropping balls. And so I stopped the trainings. I pulled him aside. I said, "What's the problem?" And he said to me, I'm standing too flat. I can't. I said, "Who told you to stand there?" "I didn't tell you to stand there. I just told you to shift the ball to the middle of the paddock so that we could start the attack. But I'll tell you something. I don't care how many balls you drop on Saturday in the test, or how many wickets, or how many tackles you miss, you'll be playing next Saturday. Now get out there and get into it." He scored an Australian record of points. It's that eliminating from the mindset the thing you just talked about is fear. And what would the mindset of the selectors be? Because if they want 3 spinners and Cameron Green is to play, does that mean one of Pat Cummins or Mitchell Starc would have to be omitted? I mean, that's ludicrous. Cummins must play.
Oh, he absolutely should. Pat Cummins should definitely play. And that's the thing, the Australian selectors have really made their own bed by that crazy decision to drop Travis Head to start with in the lead up to that first test match, because that would have surprised majority of people within the team for them to be looking over their shoulder.
Yes.
And one of the most important things for the leaders of any environment is to be able to create a fearless environment. So people aren't thinking about, well, because the decisions that are being made, what if I don't perform, then gosh, I might not be playing next week. And by the decisions that selectors made in this first test, before the first test with Travis Head not playing, then there's going to be repercussions all the way through, and hopefully there's just a bit of calm.
Yeah.
There's a bit of calm. The selectors have made their call on that first test match with Travis Head, and there needs to be calm for this second test match, just knowing that they can't just keep chopping and changing players because people just start looking over their shoulders, playing for themselves, and that's not the team environment that is performing at their best.
Do you pick 2 off spinners because you can't omit Todd Murphy now? Do you omit Nathan Lyon and pick a left-arm finger spinner, Ashton Agar, or the 26-year-old who went to the Southport School, Matthew Kuhneman? I mean, these are dilemmas, aren't they?
They are. You can see, and it was a good call from the Australian selectors to pick their 2 best spinners. Yes, they are 2 off spinners. Todd Murphy has come with huge raps with his ability to be able to control where he bowls the ball, and he bowled very nicely in the first test match. Yes, it's not ideal with having 2 bowlers, spin bowlers, turning it the same way, but you do need to pick your best 2 bowlers. Unfortunately, Ashton Agar the test match that he played in Sydney didn't instill a lot of confidence with the way he bowled in that test match. Unfortunately, he didn't bowl anywhere near his best. So the selectors certainly would have been reluctant to play him in that first test match.
But he's a bit of an all-rounder, though. He can bat and everything, and a really lovely chap, Ashton Agar. Now, this chapter, the brain is like a muscle, you say. How can we deplete our mental energy? Now, this is critical for young people, isn't it, making their way in life, because you've also got 2 chapters here. One is the demon of expectation. Now, you faced that right throughout your cricket career. And there's another one, anxiety affects performance. Now, you've been down both those roads. What are you saying to the young people and to parents out there?
Yeah, the chapter around the brain is like a muscle is all around understanding that your brain is like a muscle and you've only got a certain amount of mental energy every single day. To be able to access all the skills that you've got, to be able to tap into your unconscious mind, which is where all of your talent, all that information that you have sits. You need to be able to have as much mental energy as you possibly can to be able to make decisions, to be able to pull and tap into that incredible skill set that you work so hard to develop. So by understanding that you need to have as much mental energy as possible, you need to understand how you deplete that. And most of the time it's overstimulating your mind, whether that's through scrolling through social media, whether that's through gaming, whether that's through overthinking situations.
Just worrying.
Absolutely. Overthinking situations and worrying.
Yeah.
Instead of actually understanding that you can redirect that thought, that script, that little bird that's sitting on your shoulder, which you are actually in control of. And that's the one thing that once I understood that I'm in control of that little bird and that little script, that internal dialogue that's always inside your mind, that you are actually in control if you want to take control, that redirecting your script away from the worry and the overthought instead of just being present and what do I need to do right now to be able to bring the best version of myself to what I'm doing right at that moment.
And there are so many kids out there that are worried, are anxious, and this is why it's a book for you. Now listen, I'm going to have a shot at you here because you talk about mental strength. You ready for this? What about when you were in the one-day squad? You'll love this, viewers. Have a look at him. He looks strong, tough, big fella, isn't he? He was in the one-day squad. He was touring England in 2005. This is not in the book. And he spent the night at Lumley Castle in County Durham. And the castle is believed to be haunted. You sook, got spooked, and you spent the night sleeping on the floor in Brett's room. Mental strength?
Yeah, no, I let the script redirect to the wrong thing, and I certainly allowed my mind to be in the wrong position. So lessons learnt.
Yes. Then, of course, in your environment, you faced a lot of disappointment, primarily because of your body, a lot of injuries, you're a big man and so on. And then early, the demon of expectation. The mindset was affecting performance. Anxiety affects performance. Did you know, I think you alluded to this in an answer previous, but I'll ask you again. Did you know as much then as you know now as to how to handle all that?
Oh, not at all. I had no understanding and coping mechanisms around just even something as simple as a demon of expectation. As soon as you set a really high expectation, for me it was getting 100, and everything was based around me getting 100. So as I was getting closer to it, my mind moved forward to, oh, I'm nearly there. I'm nearly reaching that target, instead of bringing it back to, okay, what do I need to do right now and what I have been doing up until this point. And there was many times where I got out in the 90s because my mind moved forward into, I'm getting closer to what my expectation, what goal I've set.
That's it. I used to set the alarm. I used to set the alarms off to get up and watch you make the 100, and it didn't happen when I wanted it to happen. But on that point, I mean, this phenomenal one-day record, you made 400s and 24 50s. If you knew then what you know now, how many of those 50s do you think you could have converted into hundreds?
I would have definitely been able to bat for longer periods of time. The one thing I was an absolute master at was burning through my mental energy. And not understanding that your brain is like a muscle. I was always on. I never actually pulled my focus back to be on neutral, and that's the one thing that I didn't understand. That I never got taught that you have to, in between balls, you really do have to switch off. Even in the lead up to the game, you have to switch off and maintain your mental energy, or if not, actually replenish your mental energy. And I was incredibly good at getting to 20s to 50s. Because I was on all the time, and then I was mentally fatigued. I'd make a mistake technically, and then I'd go off the ground, beat myself up that I'm soft, I'm weak, I'm mentally weak, and I'd go and just look at my technique instead of understanding that it was majority would just do. I'd just burn out my mental energy, and then I made a mistake. Exactly.
Nothing to do with technique. Now, you captained Australia in 11 matches, 9 one-days and 1 test, and you talk in the book about team environment, and we're looking here at boardrooms, classrooms, and all that sort of stuff. How, in that team environment, as the captain of the team, whomever he might be, the CEO, the chairman or whatever, how important is the captain to contribute to a positive team environment?
The leaders are everything, especially if the people under the leader aren't fully educated on mental skills and understanding that I can overwrite whatever's going on above me to be able to have the right mindset at that moment in time. Leaders, it's so integral for them to understand how to create the right mental team environment, how to create a process-driven environment so people are just focused on what they need to do to bring the best version of them and just do it over and over again. Not focusing on what might happen, not focusing on if you make a mistake, you'll be gone. And it's incredibly important for leaders to understand how important it is for them to be able to just create the right environment, the right language around a high-performing environment, which is all around, this is the plan, this is what we have to do, just do it over and over again. And if we do this, we give ourselves the best chance of getting the results we're looking for, instead of the leaders who it's all around, you need these results no matter what, and if you don't, you're gone. So people start getting worried and stressed and everything when they get...
People watching this bloke are now saying, well, why isn't he running Australian cricket? That's a very important point. And we need people like this. Look, you can buy the book. It's Winning the Inner Battle. It is up on the screen. ShaneWatson.au to buy your copy. Get one for your son, your daughter. Get one for the boardroom. Just before you go, quick one. What changes should be made to the Australian team, and can we turn it around in Delhi?
We certainly can turn it around. It's going to be a challenge because Delhi's a challenging place to be able to play. It's going to turn, and it's normally a fairly lowish sort of wicket. I hope Cameron Green comes in and he's able to... I'm just such a huge fan of Cameron Green. The more he plays, the better he's going to get for sure. So I hope he comes in. He's going to be a little bit underdone after not playing for a while. But I just hope they just keep the core. The selectors have made a call in the first test, so keep the core of the team together.
Correct.
Because otherwise people start looking over their shoulder. So you've made a call before the first test, now stick with it.
That's right.
And be confident that you've made the right decision before the first test.
I used to say, you can't say a week ago, this is the best Australian team and that's why we picked it and we're putting it on the paddock. And then a week later you say, oh, well, this is now the best Australian team. You were either wrong then or you're wrong now. We'll wait and see. Friday it is in Delhi. Shane, great stuff, tremendous stuff. There you are. That's the book. It's on your screen there. Winning the Inner Battle, ShaneWatson.au. Thanks for your time, Shane.
It's great to chat to you as always, Alan. Thanks.
There we are.